Like, I didn't choose any of this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Before I even went through puberty, I knew I liked boys.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody touched me. I wasn't molested. I had a father in the house. So I was checking off these boxes like, well, I just don't know what y'all
Yeah.
talking about, because everybody was trying to like
Unwinding all the what they assign and why you gotta be gay.
right.
Like,
Oh, you gotta be, or something happened. Or maybe you watched too many cartoons, or oh, she shouldn't have let you watch all those Janet
Right.
Jackson videos. Niggas be gay.
they be gay. What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Queerly Blax Show. I'm your host, Ashley, and I'm so happy you came by. The Queerly Blax Show aims to normalize the everyday existence of Black, LGBTQIA+ individuals through an interview-style series with regular folks like you and me. So every week, a new guest shares their story and unique perspective on their existence as an LGBTQIA+ individual. Thank you for tuning in, and make sure you subscribe, download, set your reminders to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Enjoy the show. Welcome back to another episode of the Queerly Blax Show. I'm your host, Ashley. I'm here with a very special guest, Mr. Kevin Dwayne. Tell the people about yourself.
Hey, I am Kevin Dwayne. I am a light worker, dancer, actor, just an all-around energy to be around. I like positivity, and that's the best way I could put it.
But going back to the beginning, was that always a part of who you were and like a part of your personality?
No. I have a story of, you come into this life, and I, like a lot of people, was a people pleaser. So my beginnings was about me just trying to be accepted by other people, if that makes sense. I learned to kind of perform for love in that sense. So it was very much like, for your parents, you gotta get good grades and do what they say, keep your room clean. For friends, you almost have to be in a nebula. Well, I say friends with quotes around it, but for acquaintances, you gotta be the all-around good person. And it's like, I used to go out of my way to people please, and so I wasn't being my authentic self. I was being who other people wanted me to be, but that eventually led to depression because I wasn't being my real self. And you start getting to a place where you just be like, what did I get from this? Because you'll learn that you can give all of yourself to someone and they can still leave you high and dry. And I think I picked up on that fairly quickly, and I was like, wait a minute, I'm not getting anything from this. Why am I pleasing other people? And then that eventually got to a point where I was all like, forget it. I'm gonna be myself. And then then being yourself, I don't know if you've noticed this, it's almost an act of rebellion. Like, people act like
It feels
you're
like one sometimes. It feels
yeah,
like
it's
you're acting out because
yeah, being your authentic self, people, it angers people. It frees some people, but it actually angers some people. So then it became almost like I was being an activist for myself. I had to fight to be who I am, and it's a very weird thing to think, but that's truly, I think, a part of a lot of people's life's journey, or I'll say your soul's journey, is to be yourself, because it's not easy.
Yeah.
It's not. We're always a version of what people want, or what people think is acceptable. So it didn't begin that way, not at all. It took a lot of healing, a lot of acceptance of myself, and a lot of validating of myself to get to this place. But I can tell you, I am very happy that I'm on this end of it, because there were times where it would have just been easier to just be like, okay, I'll just be the person who sits behind the scenes and do what everybody wants me to do, say the appropriate things, do the appropriate things. And it's just, but that's boring.
Yeah. And exhausting.
Exhausting.
I could definitely relate to that. I mean, just thinking about, going through life, and it's almost as if like the more your own life forms, you're like, okay, I gotta, my capacity for other things is lessening. Like, I don't have time for some of the things I didn't, you don't do it consciously, because I'm a people pleaser as well. You it's a habit you form, and then you realize how draining it is. Like, when there are times where what you need to do for self conflicts with what others want for you to do, and you have to, and obviously, pick yourself, and picking yourself feels like the act of rebellion. Like this pattern I established, I used to be everything for everybody, and now I'm choosing myself, which is correct, but it feels like I'm like disappointing someone else, so I totally relate to that. And I mean, this, hey.
No, I think the best thing I can say is also no one will die from disappointment
Oh, for sure,
because
no one.
it's better to disappoint somebody else than disappoint yourself.
Absolutely.
And on top of that, when you are your authentic self, you find your people. You
Yes.
find your tribe. If you're busy being this act or wearing this mask, you're gonna meet other people who want that mask.
Mm-hmm.
So if you start being yourself and it pushes people away, let them go
Mm-hmm.
because you're making room for the people that are supposed to be in your life, and that is fact, not
Absolutely.
opinion. That is fact.
That's proven.
Yes,
It's
absolutely proven.
100%.
Because I'm surrounded by people who celebrate who I am and I
Yeah.
celebrate who they are. And it's not even like I don't have to explain myself. I was like, wow, the universe really came through on this one. But it took the courage to just say, this is me.
Yeah.
And you find more people who are being themselves. And it's a way more beautiful situation. But you have to kind of walk through the fog or the fear because it's scary.
Mm-hmm.
I remember being growing up in like the Christian everything, church, school, whatever, and having those friends, and then being on that end in my teenage years, early 20s, and I couldn't have imagined this life over here. The fear was that thick. It was
Mm-hmm.
just a very thick, brainwashed fear.
Yeah.
But looking back, I was like, wow. I mean, it was still a journey, and I had definitely had ups and downs, but I'm happy to be on the side. But I had to take that step in the dark.
Yeah. 100%. I understand. So we'll dive into your your career journey. And we'll start at the beginning. When was your what was your first encounter with your sexuality?
You know what? I want to say actually when I was in the first grade. That's when I knew something was different about me. I was just like, okay, because it's like how do we were in first grade? Like 7, 6, 7? That's
Yeah,
around
so
that age,
about
something like
six.
that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I remember liking this boy named Marcus, but it was more than just like I want to be his friend. It was like I really like this dude. And it was like the weirdest thing for me. And it wasn't sexual. And people love to apply sex to us. Have you noticed that?
One
They
hundred
apply sex
percent.
to us more
Absolutely.
than anybody else. And it drives me crazy. It wasn't
Yeah.
sexual. It was just like I had a crush on this boy. And he was actually an extra in Full House. And I
Mm.
remember watching. We were in school together, but I remember he was on Full House. I remember watching it and being like, "Oh my god!" It was this whole thing, and I think I said something to someone and they were just like, "Oh, well, you can't like boys like that," or something like that. It was something weird. And it wasn't like necessarily in a shameful way, but it was enough to let me know that that's not the lay of the land, because there was also a girl who would chase me like around like on recess, and I told my mom. And I was like, yeah, this girl chases me, but I don't like it. She's like, and she says something along the lines like, you're supposed to like it when girls chase you. And I was like, okay. And I think about how problematic that is now. But she was like, you're supposed to like it when girls chase you. And I was just like, okay, I don't like it. And so
Mm-hmm.
that was my first moment of feeling that way. And then, but I didn't know what it was. And then let's skip ahead 2 years to third grade. And it's weird how trauma works. But I remember I used to play double dutch and play with the girls. I did all that stuff. It was
Mm-hmm.
fine. That's who I was. I think that's just how the energy worked for me. That's where I felt the most
Yeah.
comfort. And I remember standing, it was the end of recess. And I remember us standing in line to go back into class. And I was sitting against like a banister, and my hands were kind of like this. And then this little boy, Robert, because you remember everything, walked up. He had a red polo on. And he was all like, ugh, Kevin's gay. My first time hearing the word. I never heard the word. I didn't understand it. And it was all because my hands were folded over like that. And I remember it being this kind of vacuum. I'm in the third grade,
Yeah.
but I remember this moment. I'm just like, I don't know what this means, but I don't like the way he's approaching me. I don't like the aggression.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt like other people were like, yeah, he's gay. And it just became this whole thing. And I remember that moment. And I remember fast forwarding to getting in the backseat of my mom's car. and I said, somebody called me gay. And she also became enraged. She's like, who called you that? Don't let nobody call you that. And then it became this whole thing. And I was just like, what the fuck does the word mean? Because
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
But it was one of those things where I don't remember how I found out what it meant, but I was able to kind of deduct real quick because of how everybody was just losing it.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, that was my
It's
first
like,
kind
okay,
of
well, whatever that means, I cannot be that because this is
exactly.
everyone's upset about this.
But here's the thing, Robert activated that shit because
Mm-hmm.
from that day forward, it became a part of people identifying me. Literally, I
Mm-hmm.
had not heard it. And then all of a sudden, every day it felt like at school, gay, 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 gay,
Mm-hmm.
gay. It was like, it was literally like somebody just turned on the plan. It was like, all right.
Mm-hmm. Here we go.
from
Playlist gonna
that
play every
from
day.
from that day forward, but then that's when behavior started shifting towards me. Then it became this thing, but then you grow into it. It's like whatever. It's like I I didn't get bullied in a way that people put their hands on me, and I'm thankful for that because I've heard some
Mm-hmm.
horror stories. I've heard
Mm-hmm.
some horror stories, but name calling, it just became a part of it because I was also a little heavier, so I got so it was the fat joke, the gay joke, the fat joke, the gay joke, and you just kind of grow into it.
Yeah.
And that was my first like real experience with it.
Yeah. So then go so that's elementary, middle school, high school. Did you kind of deny that and like proceed? Did you date women? Did you kind of how was your kind of
It was very up
formative
and down.
years with that?
My formative years were wild. I have one of those. I have one of those. Well, I mean, a lot of us have stories that we try to like make cleaner than what they are, and it wasn't. There was a lot of experimenting very early
Mm-hmm.
for me. My first like experience with another guy, I had to be. I think I was in fifth grade.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely was in fifth grade, and we were like the same age. He was like maybe a year older than me. We were the same age, and that was my first experience with that. And I was like, okay, definitely like boys. It was one of those things. But then I went to Christian school, so because of the bullying, and I say that lightly, in elementary school, I went to a public school. My mom, she put me in private school because she thought that would be safer. Now, this is kind of like with a lot of, I don't like to generalize, but with a lot of black people, we tend to not talk about things, but what's up.
Mm-hmm.
I think because of what was going on with me in the public school, she was like, okay, let me try to get him some more protection.
Mm-hmm.
So she put me in a Christian school, which that brought on a whole nother level of spiritual bullying, if you call
Mm-hmm.
if I'm being honest. So, but that was her like, I need to keep him safe.
Yeah.
So then I'm going to this Christian school. So now you're adding a whole nother level of like, okay, not only is this not all right, but you're probably gonna burn in hell too. So there's that. So I'm in middle school now, and I'm grappling with liking boys, but also it's like I had a whole nother life because I'm sexually active now because I said I had my first experience with a boy, fifth grade,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm now sexually active in middle school. Not like you would think because I'm in this private school, other people aren't sexually active like I am, but now I have this sexual experience that other people don't have. So now
Mm-hmm.
it becomes like almost like a private thing. So now I'm seeking out porn or something just to kind of feed this now activated thing in me,
Mm-hmm.
and that was very very weird. So that caused a very weird cloud for me, plus the Christian teaching and stuff like that. So I tried to have girlfriends. I tried to force it, and it was like it was nerve-wracking, and I did this through high school.
Mm-hmm.
I really tried because I went to a Christian high school too, and I tried, and it was like every girlfriend I had wanted to have sex with me. And I was just like, why can't I find the stereotypical Christian girl who wants to wait till marriage? Because this shit is
All
stressful.
right. I'm trying to find a beard here.
I
Okay.
was
I just
yeah,
need a stand-in.
I
I
was
ain't
just
even trying to
I
be
just
doing
needed
all that with
I just
you.
needed somebody who I could just push it off.
A decoy. Like,
And
can we
I would date these girls for like 2-3 weeks. I want you to take my virginity. Leave me
You're like, ooh,
alone.
Kevin, let's go.
Oh man, and it's wild. So I definitely tried. I definitely tried to date girls, and I had two specific run-ins that just scared the hell out of me. And one, homecoming, and we're at the football game, and like all my guy friends are around me, and they're all we're just hanging out, and
Mm-hmm.
then my current girlfriend at the time, is like with me and she has her arms around me. And then she kind of puts her hands down my pants in front of all of my friends. They are hyped. They're like, oh, Kevin's the dude. I am mortified.
You
But they're looking at me, yo, Kevin's the dude, da, da, da. And it was a very weird feeling because of toxic masculinity and all this
Mm.
bullshit. They're all looking at
They like
me.
uplifted you in this
And
moment, but you're
I'm sitting here,
inside like,
I'm
oh
mortified. Like,
God.
I want you to take your hand out of my pants right now. And it was just mortifying because also nothing's going on down there. I'm not attracted to, and so she's kind of, you can tell she's perplexed. I'm perplexed. And it's just a very awkward moment. And that was like number one. Number two, there was another girl I dated. I ended up going over to her place to like study or something. She takes her fucking top off, breast out, and I'm just like frustrating. So at this point, I'm like, I can't do this. So we fast forward to me being 17 and be like, you know what? Nah. Senior year, something just spiked in me that I was like, I'm gonna start coming out to people. And I'm sorry if I'm jumping ahead too
No,
far
you're good.
here. I told one of my closest friends at the time, but they ended up betraying me and telling their parents. And so this became another dark moment. So that family ended up blackmailing me because I told you I went to a Christian school.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, for what it's worth, I went to a white Christian school. So let's add the get out factor to
Mm-hmm.
it too.
Mm-hmm.
The taking privileges that you shouldn't take, doing things you shouldn't doing. And I look back on this and think about how problematic that was for this white family to do this to this black child, but whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so they found out and they were going to out me to my parents. It was a whole thing. And I was like, nah, because I didn't know, like I said, going back to when I was in third grade, I was like, I just had this fear around it, like a lot of us
Yeah.
do as Black
100%.
queers. Like,
Mm-hmm.
nah, it's not gonna go how you think it's gonna go.
Mm-hmm.
So, nah, you're not. I was like, no, I'm crying, I'm pleading. They're like, okay, well, you need to fix it. I'm like, I need to fix it. They're all like, okay, well, you're not 18 yet, so pretty much they put me in reparative therapy
Mm-hmm.
in exchange for not outing me. So I was a pretty smart kid in high school. So I had two free periods because all my credits were done in senior year. So I lied to my parents and told them that I was doing something for student council or something. But instead, I was being I was being transported from my high school to a church to talk to this pastor about praying the gay away and all that shit. And I did that shit for a year. I mean, the last year of high school. Yeah. So that
That's
happened.
wild.
It's wild. It's
That
wild, right?
shit's wild.
It's wild, and no one saw anything wrong with what they did. That's what's so funny because
That's crazy. Yeah.
I've confronted and cussed out all these people
Yeah.
in my grown
Yo,
age,
yeah.
but no one sees anything wrong with what they did.
Even still.
Even still, they were doing the Lord's work. Okay, girl. So I did that, and then fast forward, I kind of had my own back and forth. Once I turned 18, it was like, forget all y'all. I'm doing what I want, but now the brainwashing had kind of took because now I've had years of this. So
Yeah.
now it's a mental thing for me because now I'm trying to figure out my belief system.
Mm-hmm.
And then at 19 is when something just happened. Something happened with one of my like family members. Little boys, they play Discovery, and he was doing the Discovery game with another one of my cousins, like, oh, I have a penis, you have a penis. And then he got beat for it. And it enraged me. It pissed me off. And I just went off. And in that, I ended up coming out. It was like
Yeah.
here. And I ended up coming out to my mom, but it was subtle because we talked about it for so long because she was upset that it happened to the little boy. She's like, that's stupid, boy's gonna do that.
Mm-hmm.
But then the conversation just kind of led that way. And then I came out to her. And of course, it was a thing about she knew. She was like, no, she was like, a parent called me when you're in middle school. And she's like, I tried my best to block it. And she did. My mom tried to raise me like how a lot of people try to raise girls. Like, and it's funny because I knew something switched because I went from being able to have more freedom and spend a night certain places to not being able to go anywhere. So I knew something was up. And she was like, no, she was trying to block it.
Yeah.
But I ended up coming out to her when I was 19. And then I told her about everything that happened before. Of course, she was upset. She's like, I wish she would have just came out to me. She's like, I know that, it was scary, but I wish she would, because she's like, I hate that somebody else took that into their own hands. Um, and then once I came out to her, it was like, fuck everybody.
Game on, let's go.
At once my mom knew,
Same.
I did not
You
care.
don't care.
Family members, I literally was like, I don't care. However you feel about it. And I was thankful because there were so many instances where people were trying to get me married off. They were trying to get me into that cycle of like being with women and pretending and whatever. And I can't say that it was just all easy after I came out to my mom, because I definitely had, like I said, I still had the brainwashing. I still had the mental thing. So I had a couple more ups and downs on my own since then. But once she knew, it just gave me more of a freedom to be myself and not have to hide. And then, yeah, and that was the end of me trying to date girls.
Yeah. Like, we're done with that.
But
But
absolutely done.
what are your thoughts on like when parents, because a lot of people's stories like they have where their parents like knew. Like parents know their kids.
Yeah.
How much easier would it be if parents were just like, listen, honey, like if sexuality was like a part of a normal conversation, like how parents sit their kids down to talk about sex, or they sit them down to talk about strangers, or they sit them down to talk about whatever, right? And we're not talking about when you're 5 or 6. We're talking about when you're in high school, like when you're pretty much like, if
you're
you
pretty sure about
me,
what you're going.
If you see me kind of moving down a certain path, like, and we're, as the queer kids, like, we're completely mortified. Like, we're like, oh my God. Like, when I tell my mom, and they be like, oh, I mean, I kind of had my mom was I kind of had an idea. You're like, well,
why the pressure?
Can we share the idea with me?
Right.
Like, can we talk about this?
Why the smoke? Because one thing that kind of cracks me up about, okay, let me answer your question first. Would it be easier? Absolutely. But I think too many parents, and I get it because we come from them. You come from your parents, so you can't not take it personally. But too many parents are in their egos about their kids. And so if you see sexuality or anything other than being hetero as wrong, they take that as they did something wrong.
Yeah.
Especially older generations.
Yep.
They just, I did something wrong. So they deny it because they don't want to go through the process of being like, no, I fed them, I did this, I took them, I did that. But I'm like, niggas be gay. Yeah, right. That's just how it goes.
Yeah.
But certain generations, it's one of those things like, I see it, but I'm going to deny it because I don't want to deal with, we personalize everything. It's hard for us to separate and say, that's your journey, this is my journey, especially for parents, because they feel like they did something wrong.
Or the connotation around it is so negative. It's like, you are not normal, blah, 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 whatever their preconceived notions are. But it's just like,
and to be fair with my mom, she lost her brother to AIDS in like 1990. So the only real experience they had was her losing her brother to AIDS. And that was, so she had no knowledge about it. And so fun, and it was ignorance. And I don't say ignorance. Ignorance is not necessarily a negative thing. It's just lack of knowledge. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So after I came out to her, it was amazing the conversations we would have. And she'd be like, you could see the light bulb coming on for her. Like the fact that I had straight friends. She's like, you got straight friends? I'm like, yeah. She's like, they not gay? I said, no. She's like, and they still friends with you? I was like, yeah. And it was just like her mom. But she just didn't know because when you fear something, like when you don't understand something, you fear it. But then you started seeing the light bulb come on for her. Then I remember going through a heartbreak with her. Somebody really had broken my heart. I mean, that happens a lot in the community in general. I went through a lot of heartbreaks, but that's a whole nother story. But I remember coming home and I was so upset. Like I was distraught. And she said something like, wow, like, so you fell in love? And I was like, I did. She was just like, I just always thought it was just a sex thing because once again, it's ignorance. And not in a negative way, but it's because of how society.
That's just the views,
right. And I'm like,
promiscuity, like it's all about sex. It's all about all those things. And then I think, I had a similar experience with an aunt of mine who's like, I think she's in her 50s now, And we were Christmas shopping, and we're sitting at the mall. I remember like we had stopped at like the little McDonald's and the Walmart, and we're sitting there just talking or whatever. And she was like, "You're so normal."
You're like, okay.
I'm like, what? Like, what does that mean? But again, right, coming from her age, she'd only seen like prostitutes or like
Hmm.
drag or
Yeah.
extreme versions of queerness, and not just people who function like, I go to work, I go to college, I go to school, I wear
Listen,
regular
Sally
clothes,
Mae,
you know
Aid
what I mean?
Advantage, or whatever
They
she
don't
called.
care what my sexuality is.
Still.
They just want their money, right?
Hmm.
You go on, you buy a house, you have a regular relationship, you have normal things. I drive a regular car. It's not
Yeah.
pink and rainbow and like all these crazy things, or AIDS, and all of this kind of very extreme nuances that are usually associated with being gay. And
Yeah.
she said it, and I was just kind of like, oh, okay,
Right.
there we go.
But even more though, especially the older I get and the more I connect to spirit, it's just like we gotta move away from this idea that there's even something called normal.
Hmm.
We all have unique paths to go on. That's why we don't like the same foods. That's why we have different allergies. That's why we have different tastes. That's why sexuality is not something you can even normalize. Like, this is why you have bisexual,
Hmm.
pansexual, all these. And it's like we have to get to a place where we have to stop putting people in boxes. Everyone's so obsessed with putting people in boxes instead of just letting them have their unique path.
Yeah.
Because when you do that, then you're looking for normal. None of us are normal. We all have things that are different from the next person. That's the beauty of
Of us.
living,
Hmm.
because we're all individuals. Like I said,
Yeah.
you're unique like everybody else. We have similarities, yes, but when you try to, and I mean, this goes back to eugenics and colonization, but these boxes have to go away. We all have differences, and so when you're looking for someone to be a certain archetype of homosexuality or whatever, you're missing the point.
Yeah.
You're not like other gays. Okay, cool. I shouldn't be.
Right. Because
And
I'm
then
myself.
I'm myself, and let me
Hmm.
be myself. So my sexuality is going to be what it is. My interests are going to be what they are. Like I'm not a fashion guy, and people, you meet some people like, oh, let's go shopping. That's the last thing I want to do. I don't
Right.
want to. Let's stop. Let's get away from this. Let's
Yeah.
move away from this idea that we can box people in, and like those generations, especially. And I get it.
Hmm.
um I empathize I empathize with even with the oppressors. It's a very weird thing, but
Yeah.
but
Most of us
those
do.
right, but
Hmm.
those generations, you got to realize what they went through.
Yep.
I couldn't imagine losing my brother to AIDS. Luckily, I'm grateful that I grew up in the prep generation. I was like, wow, who would have thought?
Right.
A preventative. Who would have thought? You know what I mean? And so that's what I'm saying. I can't
Magic
imagine what it's
Johnson would
like.
have thought.
Exactly. Seriously. Seriously.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't imagine what it was like being in that time where literally everything on television was telling you that AIDS was a gay disease. Like, so you're literally being just how COVID was like, oh my God, COVID, COVID. Can you imagine
Hmm.
it? AIDS, AIDS, AIDS. And so naturally that sticks with you. And now
Yeah.
you're having kids. In fact, a lot of us were already born.
Yeah.
And so you're naturally going to move
90s. Yeah.
into it. Yeah. So you're like, you push away from it. So I get it, but it was still difficult being the queer kid and being like, I didn't choose any of this.
Hmm. Hmm.
Before I even went through puberty, I knew I liked the boys.
Hmm.
Nobody touched me. I wasn't molested. I had a father in the house. So I was checking off these boxes like, well, I just don't know what y'all talking
Yeah.
about, because everybody was trying to like,
Unwinding all the like what they
oh,
assign and why you gotta be gay. And it's
right.
like,
Oh, you gotta be, or something happened. Or maybe you watch too many cartoons, or
yeah,
oh, she shouldn't have let you watch all those Janet
right.
Jackson videos. Niggas be gay.
They be gay. People have to try to put a label or put an understanding around something that they just can't figure out, or like it's too out of my wheelhouse.
Hmm.
I gotta be able to peg everything. We got to
Yeah.
be able to try to relate it to something else, right? And so
Yeah.
that's where the boxes come from. But it's weird because I've even explored the conversation of all the labels we have in the queer community, right? So like
Hmm.
we've created our own level of language, right? That for us trying to explain it to people who are hetero, it even becomes challenging to explain, because now they're like, okay, so before it was just gay and straight. It's like, I understand that, like, that's clear to me. Now there's the nuance of, okay, I'm gay, but I don't like them. Or and so then it's like, okay, so what's that mean? And then you start to develop, then the language starts to develop. It's like, well, I also like boys, I also like girls. So what? So then you're not gay, you're bisexual, right? So it's like, oh, I actually don't like, this, but I also like. So then that's when this language starts to develop. But again, it's just everyone trying to find their space. So I have there's a whole other conversation I want to have around that, because I think in trying to find community, right, we are almost forced to subscribe to societal norms, because we always had to pick a box. You always had to, okay, are you white, black, Asian? What are you? Okay, and then that carried over to, okay, now what's your pronouns? Okay, wait, you're a girl, but wait, you're something else. And that's all, to me, based in society. Like, that's all, society norms that we are forcing ourselves, we have to force ourselves into to make people understand us.
Absolutely. But you know what's so funny is, I think it's beautiful that things are getting more and more quote unquote confusing for people, because what's happening is we're being forced to let go. We're being forced to not have all the answers. I always say the creator is creating. That's the point. We are meant to evolve. We are meant to change. Just when you get comfortable, bam, new construct. Bam, new way of living. Bam. Have you noticed that?
Oh yeah, 100%.
That's 100%. The point. The point is that it's evolution. It's literally evolution in action. It doesn't stop. That's the point. You're going to get new ways of being. You're going to get new, like the whole thing around gender. We're breaking that because gender is a construct. It's not real. It's not real. All this stuff we apply to it. Oh yeah, I wear blue. Girl, stop.
But it's amazing, like it's amazing how that type of stuff comes out. Like, it's amazing how we arrive at a place where people are like, you know what, this is just too much, and then decide to just do away with the whole thing.
Just live.
We've been telling you to get away from that this whole time.
Just live.
It's telling you to stop worrying about what's between such and such legs for 20 years, but you just gotta understand it. Okay, well, here you go.
Yeah,
and then you're like, oh, this is too much. Okay,
you're being forced to do it. And but here's the thing, though, it's with everybody, though. If you notice, every community has somebody below them that they don't understand. Because what we have bad in the gay community is with our trans brothers and sisters, or our trans family. I won't even apply gender to it. But sometimes we have blind spots with that, and that drives me crazy. I'm like, how the hell you, minority, is trying to stump down somebody else? Everybody's being pushed to grow. And you grow by letting people show up the way they want to show up and respecting them for showing up the way they want to show up, and not how you want them to show up. Because ego wants people to behave the way that we want them to. But love and acceptance just says that's you. That's your unique path. And we're being forced to do that because every time you get comfortable, something new come around. You be like, I don't get it.
Try to get comfortable. Here come COVID.
But there's your journey. Listen, COVID, as dark as it was, it really advanced a lot of things.
Oh, 100%. Because everything that had to do with self was brought to the surface. Because when you're isolated and you're sitting with yourself, which most people were afraid to do, most people were petrified to do, or didn't know that was even necessary, back to just ignorance, right? You didn't know that you had microaggression towards a certain class. You didn't know that you still subscribe to norms of the past. You didn't know that, hell, you never knew that, people struggled as much as they did. I think one of the greatest things, and we can talk about it, but like, the rise of mental health and awareness became like one of the biggest things that came out of COVID, just and
Mhm.
unfortunately, you know, the level of suicide and the level of just, you know, violence also increased because of just what people started to wrestle with. But you know, people being aware and honest about, like, you know, I'm not okay every day. You know,
Yeah,
I struggle. I go through things. I, you know, experience these feelings. Some of it was brought on by COVID, but some of it lived within before that, and you just had
yeah.
to face it because you weren't distracted by a whole bunch of other stuff. Um, for you, as we kind of get approach the end here, uh, as you've journeyed through, like, you know, all of the things that you kind of experienced in your youth, and now as an adult, you know, motivating, you know, people, and I'm sure motivating and uplifting your own self. Um, how do you feel about um, your journey now, and what were some of the things that you had to personally do to kind of um be okay in standing in your truth today?
Oh, I like that. I had to learn how to truly love myself. And I mean truly, not in a vain way, not in a way, because there were times where I had fake love for myself. It was conditional love for myself. Isn't that crazy? I had conditional love for myself.
100%.
If I was a certain body type, okay, I can love myself right now. Okay, if I got a haircut, I can love myself right now. But then I got to a place where I think after enough heartbreak, after enough trying to be someone I wasn't to get acceptance, and it came from heartbreak. Isn't that crazy? Heartbreak shook me enough to where I started meditating and started going within, like we talked about, and really digging and healing things from my past and healing all the things that made me go towards certain toxic situations. And I got to a place of self acceptance, like unconditional self acceptance. It was no longer about how I looked or whatever. It was about what was in my soul. Real talk. I really got to the part where I'm like, this is really the matrix. This is really all this outward stuff has
Hmm.
is all outward stuff. I can't let it get to my inner. And when I started going within and I really started truly when I really started accepting myself, all of a sudden I just stopped caring about a lot of things, meaning what people thought of me, opinions, how I looked. I stopped taking myself so seriously, which allows me to
Major
show
thing.
up
Hmm.
in goofy ways and have a good time. And that's why the energy comes through in my videos and stuff like that, because I'm literally being myself. I'm not following trends. I'm literally just, I like this song. Let me dance to this song. Let me tell this joke. This is on my heart. Let me say it. And what happens is when you start loving and accepting yourself, it just happens on greater levels. It's like it levels up. It's like you do it more and more and more and more. And so when you show up, it's different. It just gives you a certain confidence and it gives you a certain courage. Fear pushes away. But on top of that, you start manifesting greater things in your life.
100%.
When I started loving myself completely, I started drawing. It was almost like I could say it and it would happen. It was like the universe was like, okay, you got it now. It's called an awakening, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think a lot of us, we all have different goals depending on what part of life you're in, but I think one that's high on the list for everybody is self-acceptance,
Yeah.
because you're literally born into a world that's telling you what to be. And so we go into the world getting these jobs, going to these schools, buying these houses, getting into debt, being who everybody else tells us who we should be.
Yep.
And the true goal is having the courage to say, nah, this is what I want to be. And I'm going to be it in spite of all that may happen. I may lose family, I may lose friends, but whatever, I still have me. And I think that's a goal that a lot of us have, because it takes courage to do that. But when you get there, you see how things start aligning. And I
Yeah.
think it's just getting there.
That is incredible. That was amazing.
Thanks.
Everybody should be in search of that awakening, because it is truly just a great place to be when you're at this, when you're the priority, you know.
It's not selfish. It's
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 not
it's it's self-love.
necessary.
It's
It's
necessary.
necessary. um Also, man, I got two more questions. One
I could
is,
do this all day, but yes, two more. Go
yeah.
for it.
Yeah. If you had a theme song for your life, what would it be?
Ooh, damn, that's really good. I would say it would have to be "Optimistic" by Sounds of Blackness. I just keep your head to
It's a
the
good one.
sky and believe it. Like your life, we have so much control over our lives. I Some people look at it as being delusional or being or people. I'm a realist. No, what you say happens. So
Yeah,
if you look for negative, guess what you're getting. But if you look for
man.
positive, guess what you're getting. So I'm okay with being delusional. I'm okay with being what they call it, toxic positivity.
Mm-hmm.
I'm, I'm okay
Hey,
with it because
I'm okay
listen,
too.
life is good.
Yes.
Not in a bragging way, but in a way that I took control of it. When you look for abundance, you get it. And that's just it. Be optimistic.
Yeah, that's a
What
good
do you
one.
have to lose? People are so afraid of being disappointed, but they don't realize you're not believing that you can have better. When you believe you can have better, you
You have
get
it.
better. But you got to
Yeah.
truly believe that.
Yeah. And you know, just to add to that, I think the consideration that people have to make for people who are you know, anti-optimist, I'm
Mhm.
100% optimist. The thing you have to consider is that we don't deny that negative exists. We
Right.
just choose to see the glass half full.
Mhm.
We know, we see that there's not water at the top, but we just are focused on the fact that we have water in the cup, period. Right? We
Yeah.
are just not going to dwell on the parts that we can't control. We're
Mhm.
happy for the water that's there.
Yes.
What is me
Deta-
being upset about the water that's not there
oh,
gonna help?
it's not exactly. It's detachment. It's detachment. That
Hmm.
I thank you. It's not that we're ignoring the negative. It's just that we're not allowing the negative to affect us internally. When you bitch and moan and complain about things you can't control, you're literally causing undue stress to yourself
Hmm.
instead of just saying, "So what?"
And
Like,
missing the moment to appreciate what is there.
absolutely.
You
That's it.
know,
And
you
that's
complaining
true.
while you drinking the water, and you
Right.
miss the fact that you actually just drank water, and that there's millions of people in other countries who have no clean water.
Who have no clean water. And on top of that, you have the opportunity to drink. So I am very
Hmm.
spiritual. I
Hmm.
am very I believe in the spiritual realm and the in this realm, 3D and 5D, right? So one of the greatest things that made me wake up was an idea. I read this book called The Old Souls Guidebook. Amazing. Ainsley McCloy. But he talks about in the spiritual realm, you can be with other spirits, but you can't hug, you can't kiss, you can't have orgasms, you can't feel pain, you can't do any of that. That's why in this existence, it matters.
Mm.
You feel pain so you can feel pleasure. You're getting all of these different experiences because once you leave this body, you're in the spiritual realm and you're going to have experience with other spirits, but you can't embrace. You can talk, you can communicate, but in this plane is where you get to experience those things. So, in a way, be grateful that you're here to experience those things. So, when
Yeah.
bad things happen, so be it. It's still an experience on this side.
Yeah.
When you're around, when you feel love, it's an experience on this side because
Yeah.
you have the being. So, this is like it's like a simulation, and we get to. I'm grateful to be on this side of the simulation
Hmm.
where I can meet another spirit and give them a hug and have a laugh with them and enjoy them. I can experience all of this because once I leave this existence, I go into a place where you're still around spirits, but you can't have the same kind of
Yeah. Sensory is
yeah.
there's no sensory.
And if you look at it that way, you'll be grateful for a lot more
Yeah.
because this is another day I get to experience this.
Yep. That's awesome. That's good. What is one piece of advice that you would have for someone going through their own journey of queerness? Um, and you know, something that you would share that has helped you, or that you would tell yourself.
Ooh, that's tough because I know that everyone's journey is different. And I know that people are in different situations. Like, so sometimes safety does come into play. because I could say be your authentic self, but there's some parts of the world where you can't, and it's not safe. But what I will say is be kind to yourself. Don't allow what's around you affect how you feel about yourself. And then when you get to a place of truly accepting who you are, get somewhere, save up, do whatever you have to do to get somewhere where you can be who you are freely and find your people.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's always good to get another perspective, and I think your journey is very. There are people who are experiencing the same thing that you experienced growing up and coming through, and so I really hope that people are able to derive something from it and it's able to help somebody. So thank you for that. Tell the people where they can find you.
Absolutely. And thank you for having me on the show. This was great.
Sure. I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, it was amazing. Great conversation. But you guys can find me on all social media platforms, The World of Kevin. I'm so grateful for consistent branding. So The
Yes.
World of Kevin. My website is kevindwayne.com. And my podcast, the Kevin Dwayne podcast, is coming back soon. I'm just working on how I want
Awesome.
that to look. So it is making a return. So look out for that.
Awesome. All right, y'all. It's another episode of the Queerly Blax Show. I'm your host, Ashley. I'll catch y'all on the next one.